Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
All right, before we get started, we're going to do the draft. The update from yesterday on the House settlement, which is
a huge one to drop from Claudia Wilkin.
But again, we told everybody last week that this was a strong possibility. So again, we've been trying to stay ahead of this as much as possible, and we have been.
And what happened was yesterday, Judge Claudia Wilkin said the NCAA's insistence on immediately implementing the roster limits of 105 would cause collegiate athletes to lose their spot in their current teams, and that she cannot approve a settlement that would cause harm to some members of the plaintiff's case, and essentially is saying what we discussed yesterday of making sure to grandfather in all walk-ons and then slowly phase them out essentially as they graduate. Literally what we said.
And again, it's not difficult to do. Okay? That just means that you say, let's just take Penn State, let's use a round number.
Sure.
All right. Well, in fact, I'll use the exact number. Right now they have 115 players. Okay. They're going to add 11 and it'll be 126. But there's going to be, based on my calculations, 7 guys after this season that are walk-ons that'll leave, 7 or 8. So let's just say 8.
118.
So suddenly 126 becomes 118. Then you're going to have 7 or 8 leave the year after that. Suddenly 118 becomes 110. I mean, here's the issue. The issue is simple. You have schools, because they are done with spring practice, that have already cut guys.
Yeah.
And now they're mad because people like James Franklin said, no, let's just wait and see how this plays out. And he's got alternate plans for these guys and has given them options. They have options.
Yeah.
Okay? They can transfer out. They can stay, but they won't be on the roster. Maybe they'll be a GA. They can try out again in the spring. Things like that you can do. All right? And they've taken it because you don't have to be to 105 until the opening day of the season. The opening day of the season, you have to be 105.
Yeah.
So he has played out this spring and let them play.
Which is smart.
Right? But it's also the right way to do it. And she has been insistent. And again, this is where this was an easy one. This was an easy one.
It's a win for everyone.
Yeah, but it was easy for the NCAA. Of the two, tweaking the language on the 10-year part, you just have to come up with the right words. But this was one of those, hey, okay, that makes sense, we'll do that. Because what do walk-ons cost you? Walk-ons, let's just do it from the financial point of view.
Go for it.
The financial point of view is simple. Number one, they don't cost you tuition.
Nope.
They don't cost you room and board. They don't cost you books, right? You already have a buffet set out for everybody, a training table. So that really doesn't cost you anything because you'd be throwing the food out anyway. It doesn't cost anything to give them a locker. It doesn't cost anything to put them on a training schedule. Put them on the plane. Charters are done by the mile, not by the number of passengers. And Penn State takes a full plane anyway, and you can only travel 74 players, so in all likelihood, the walk-on is not traveling with you.
Yeah.
Unless they're on special teams or something like that, they'll be one of the 74 players. There's 74 regardless of they're all scholarships or 65 are scholarships and 8 or 9 of them happen to be walk-ons. There's no difference, right? Hotel room, oh, by the way, we pair up in hotel rooms. So somebody's going to be in that room anyway. What do they cost you? Okay? Almost nothing. Almost nothing.
About the same amount it cost Fordham to get a photographer, give or take.
Right. But that's and the NCAA came back, and in typical fashion, they don't give a darn.
Nope.
They don't understand anything. I mean, that's what bothers me about them. They act like they have no idea about anything. You have a judge sitting in California who's smarter about this than an entire organization whose business is this. This isn't her business, and she knows more.
She gave them a layup, and they decided to chuck a half-court shot.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make sense, and it never will. So now they have to come back, and they're like, well, I'll have to come back. They'll be back in a week. Yeah.
By the time, my prediction is sometime next week it'll get approved because she's checkmarked. She already told me yesterday, I checkmark everything but this.
It's one thing.
Right? And Steve Berman, the attorney for the players, was like, okay, hey, we're with you. Let's just come up with it. Let's get it done. Right? Because they know they have everything else. They know they have it.
The rest of it's done is just this one thing. Right. And it's a really reasonable one thing to have to deal with.
I mean, you're not talking about, okay, the argument is going to be from those who jumped the gun, Iowa, and cut guys.
Yeah.
You can't bring them back.
No.
You already cut them.
It's going to be the tough blank is what Iowa gets to hear now.
Oh, and they're going, well, that's an advantage for other people. You shouldn't have jumped the gun. You made the decision. Right? Okay. He's sitting there, and James said, yo, let's play this out as long as we can. And now, because they played it, and this is where Penn State had the advantage of being one of the last to have a spring game, that they could play it out longer for these guys. Well, guess what? It may end up, in fact, it's not going to may pay off. It is going to pay off because it doesn't take much to whittle the roster down over time. It doesn't take much.
No.
Right? And these players, because of a court settlement, should not lose spots. Oh, there you go. Okay.
And the players that you're, of course, talking about play football and or play every sport. But the big one's football.
Right.
And speaking of football, of course, today is the NFL draft.
Right.
It's going down in Green Bay tonight. And we have been over the past few days on our social media putting out different mock drafts from our staff, whether it was myself, Alec from Scorebook Stories, Jason had his mock draft out. His had some crazy things going on in there. But we want to hear yours, Steve. So we're going to go through all 32 picks in the first round, presuming no trades take place, and go through and have a little mock draft here on the show for everyone so they can know what's going to happen in Green Bay. And if you go 30 for 32 or better in this, I'll donate $50 to charity. Your choice. I'm putting that in there. I want to do it. I want to have fun today. So,
charity.
With that being said, first overall pick, Tennessee Titans.
Well, I mean,
who will they select?
Well, this is the easy one. Everybody knows it's going to be Cam Ward. There's no secret about it.
Will Howard, first overall. Got it. Sorry, Kyle McCord. Wrong guy. My bad. So, Cam Ward.
Let me put it this way. Kyle McCord will make a team.
He'll second, third round pick. He's going to be somewhere in here.
He will make a team. He may be practice squad early, but eventually ascend at some point to a 2 on a team. So,
I'm fairly confident.
In fact, I predict Kyle McCord will actually get into a couple of games this year because of attrition.
There are a lot of teams that also need quarterbacks anyway, and if they think at some point in the season, 8 games in, their situation is terrible, cough, cough, Spencer Rattler, may as well take a shot at him. Yeah. So, first overall, Cam Ward to the Titans. It's pretty much the easiest pick. He a week ago was on podcast saying, the best receivers in the NFL are number 4, Treylon Burks, and number 1, Calvin Ridley. I mean, last night apparently they also filled their receiver need with Tyler Lockett. So the Titans.
Good, dependable, not a game breaker, but on the level of professionalism and dependability, Lockett's a good player.
And in terms of helping Cam Ward develop, it's a pretty good option to have in terms of like, hey.
But now what do they do with Will Levis? That'll be the next part. Do they deal Will someplace, which I think they will.
It is the question. And then coming up number 2, a pick that people think might be on the clock in terms of trades, the Cleveland Browns at number 2. The current projection looks like it's going to be Travis Hunter. The rumor is they could trade it, but in this case, they're not going to.
Right. So let's talk about that for a moment. When you're the Browns, you have multiple needs. So when you have multiple needs and you have a player on the board that can fill two of your needs. And it doesn't matter to me whether he's a slot corner situationally to being a full-time wide receiver. That's fine. You're still filling two needs with one player. That becomes, to me, the overall factor in this. I know when I did the Browns podcast with them on their flagship station, but I think it was actually on the station. It wasn't, and I think they doubled it as a podcast. They were all over Abdul Carter with the idea that Carter opposite Myles Garrett would be just a great thing for Cleveland. So I wouldn't count Carter out of the sweepstakes, but I'll take Travis Hunter in this spot.
Travis Hunter, number 2, now leads us to another team that is quarterback needy. That the gossip on the street is they could go with pretty much anybody in this draft. The New York Giants, sitting 3rd overall. Their needs per PFF are quarterback, tackle, defensive interior, and cornerback. But at the Giants, they kind of need a lot of things.
Well, again, multiple needs for a team that's just not a good team. The quarterback situation would be, do I make a trade, get multiple picks, and then I still have a prime pick in an area at somewhere between 15 and 25 where I could make that quarterback pick. Okay, but since we have to stick here, you take the best player available on the board. And as I told when I was on the Giants podcast, I said, look, the 2 best players on the board, I said, are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I said, and you can argue who is the best. I said, and you would not have a wrong argument on Hunter, and you would not have a wrong argument on Carter. And they agreed with that. I said, so you take the best player available. Carter's the best player available. He goes to the Giants.
Abdul Carter, first Penn State player off the board, not going to be the last in this first round. He goes to the New York Giants 3rd, which then brings us to the team the Giants have tortured over the past 2 years in different Super Bowl formats, the New England Patriots, with needs at running back, receiver, and a glaring one on the offensive line.
Well, they're going to go with a tackle to protect Drake May, and that's going to be Will Campbell from LSU. I don't, it seems like he's pretty much the obvious one. I was just in Boston. They were like, well, hey, we're going to draft Will Campbell. I said, well, good luck.
Yeah. It's not a flashy pick, but it's the one they need because Drake May needs protection.
Look, does he have a skill set? Skills. Okay, footwork, how to play, and so forth to be a Pro Bowl tackle? Yes. There's going to be questions about arm length, and he's going to have to overcome that. If he can't overcome it, it doesn't mean they can't move him to guard. But if he can deal with it, and he dealt with it in the SEC.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like he's out there in his alligator arms, but the ideal arm length, he's actually like a couple inches short on the ideal arm length in the NFL. But this is one where it's a need, it's a fit. The Patriots will take him, and I think that's like Cam Ward. That's one of the no doubters of the draft.
No doubter. Will Campbell 4th overall brings us straight south to the land of Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville Jaguars, who have the 5th pick, and teams pretty much don't know what they're going to do at this point because the Jaguars sit here with needs across the board, offense, defense, and there's rumors of anyone.
So who's the head coach?
Liam Cohen.
And what was Liam Cohen's background?
Offense.
Ashton Genty, Boise State.
Ashton Genty, Boise State. Does that mean I presume they're going to trade Trevor Etienne? Maybe. Think Bigsby is there.
They don't have to, but again, what's the background to the head coach? The background of the head coach is offense. I mean, I think they're going to take Ashton Genty.
And the team upset about that is the team everyone thought would get Genty 6th overall, the Las Vegas Raiders. They're sitting here at needs at running back, receiver, interior on the defense, and at defensive back.
All right. So Genty's off the board. Pete Carroll's going to want, he always wants big offensive linemen. So let's go to Texas. Kelvin Banks, the guard from the University of Texas.
Kelvin Banks goes to the Raiders. And then making their way similarly to the Meadowlands, the 2nd pick in 7 total, the New York Jets. And, of course, they have a quarterback slot that has been filled by Justin Fields, and they have needs across the board when it comes to the receiver's position, tackle, defensive interior, and there's one player people think might get picked by them, but who do you have going to the Meadowlands.
And a lot of people talk about Tyler Warren. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've got Olu Fashion, who already penciled in to play left tackle. So how about Armand Membo from Missouri to play right tackle?
It's a heck of a tackle duo. It means you're pretty much set on the tackles for the years to come, and they're both young. They're both going for it, so may as well. We then move down to 8, Carolina Panthers. They're sitting here. The projection is a receiver or an edge rusher for them. There are quite a few of both of those options on the board.
A guy I am big on, and it's really, you watched when Georgia played Texas, this guy spent the vast majority of the time in the backfield. The vast majority of the time in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Jalen Walker of Georgia. I really like him as a player. I mean, when I had to prepare ahead of time, so I had both Notre Dame and Georgia prepared for the Orange Bowl because of time frame. I had to make sure that way I was updating teams when I got there. Walker's numbers were just stunning to go with what I saw visually.
Mm-hmm. So Jalen Walker, 8th overall, brings us now to my team, the New Orleans Saints. And before we get to the pick, who I chose yesterday for the Saints was based on how my draft had gone. I had the Saints take Armand Membo. I think we just announced that they're not picking up the 5th-year option on Trevor Penning, the right tackle. Talisi Fuaga, the left tackle currently, is a natural right tackle. Membo can play left tackle, so the thought would be put Membo left, Fuaga on the right, and then you go from there, or the inverse, I believe. But the Saints right now sitting here at 9th overall. Of course, we don't know the future of Derek Carr. No one's got any idea. New coach Kellen Moore comes in. What's he going to do? I have a thought of who they go here, which is just best player available. But
who's your thought on best player available?
Best player available would probably be Tedaro McMillan or Tyler Warren. Those would be the two guys I'd look at. I'd look at someone on the offensive side of the ball. I think you can just get the best dude there. Get whoever it is who you have ranked highest on your board who's left. That's my thought.
At this point, the highest ranked guy on the board left would be Mason Graham.
I don't think the Saints need it as much.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that would be the highest ranked on the board. What about a quarterback? I'm just throwing it out there. What about a quarterback?
That is the question for the Saints. Is do they go quarterback?
Does Kellen Moore as a quarterback who played the position, who's been a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, does he bring in a quarterback to mold in his image?
The question is maybe, but along with that, how do they feel about Spencer Rattler? That is the weird one here. If Rattler's not there, if they have just Jake Haener and just Derek Carr, I think quarterback is taken at 9. The problem is, do they have some belief in Rattler? And for all accounts, it seems like they do have a belief in him, which is why there's rumors Saints trade up to the 20s, their second-round picks, to get a Jackson Dart. As a Saints fan who follows all the things and stays as much in touch as I can with the Saints stuff, truthfully, I have no idea what they're doing with this pick. They could take Jahdae Barron. I wouldn't bat an eye. They could take Mason Graham. I'd be like, okay. There is literally no pick I don't think the Saints could make here. They have every option available. That's why I think whoever the best player on your board is, if that's Shedeur Sanders, if that's Tedaro McMillan, if that is Mason Graham, whoever the best dude left is that you think is the best player, just take him at this point.
This is going to be a reach. I'm going to say they're going to take Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart goes to the New Orleans Saints. That is, I think, the first big, I guess.
Let's have fun.
Yeah, we're having fun here.
I'm having fun with the dang thing. Let's go.
You are having fun here. That brings us now to the double doinkers, the Chicago Bears, sitting there at number 10.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Tyler Warren going to the Bears here.
Tyler Warren to the Bears, partner him and Cole Kmet up. Yep. You've got them. You've got DJ Moore, Roma Dunze with Caleb Williams. He's got a new offensive line with some new traded guys in.
And who's the new head coach there?
An offensive guy.
Guy.
Sitting there pretty.
Right. Which then gets to San Francisco, which needs a defensive tackle. They take Mason Graham.
They take Mason Graham. So they're not taking Kyle F, to your dismay, because you want me to be a Niner so Jason Lord can enjoy that? You're not mean, I know.
No,
you're a happy person.
It's like, I realize that he loves the 49ers because, his family panned for gold back in the 40s. And in the 1840s, and as you can tell by the clothes he wears, they came up empty.
And I was not alive in the 80s, 90s. The Niners, of course, were a huge rival of the Cowboys, who are sitting here at number 12 with needs aplenty. Where do the Cowboys go at number 12?
McMillan.
Terrell McMillan to the Cowboys. I know the hot rumor on the street, if he was gone, would be Matthew Golden. Stays down in land Texas. Goes the Cowboys. Brings us to 13, which currently is the Miami Dolphins, who are in an interesting spot. They need offensive line help, defensive interior help, plus also
Walter Nolan,
cornerback help. But they go Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, second Ole Miss player taken in the first 13 picks.
By me, yes.
Which ain't too shabby. Now, the Indianapolis Colts sitting there.
If Tyler Warren were sitting there, they would take him. So he's not sitting there based on our mock draft. That means Colston Loveland of Michigan, because we're going to stick tight end here.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Now brings us to 15 and the Atlanta Falcons, who have needs on receiver, at center, on the edge, and at linebacker. Where do the Falcons land?
Edge, Georgia, Mikael Williams.
Mikael Williams makes his way to Georgia, if I could ever find him in this different selection of players. There he is. Coming in number 16, midway point of the draft, the Arizona Cardinals. They need guard, defensive line help, corner help. Where do they go?
Oh, boy. A guy that I think is a really good player from Alabama, Jihad Campbell. I think he could fit as an outside, as a linebacker for them. I think he'd really help.
And then brings us now to the back half of the draft. The Cincinnati Bengals. Do they ever give any love to the defense, or do they complete the offensive trio?
No, look.
Because their defense is bad, but they're going all in on offense. So,
well, it seems that way, but I think they're going to have to do something defensively here. And to me, there's a lot of people that really like Derek Harmon of Oregon. I don't. When he was at Michigan State, I was like, eh. When he was at Oregon, because I did the Big Ten championship game, I was like, eh. And then when he played Penn State in that game, he was, Penn State ran for 200 and something yards. And guess what? He was a part of it. I'm just not big on Derek Harmon. I just am not. And, I mean, I'm talking like never. With all due respect to the entire Harmon family, I am not big on.
They're not big on you.
They're just not big on Derek Harmon. So I'm going to stick Michigan, because the guy I am big on is Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant of Michigan is a really good player. And I think he and Graham were a really good 1-2 punch in the middle, as Ohio State found out.
Michigan now sitting there with 3 picks in your top 17, and there's a pretty strong chance they get at least one more guy in there before the first round wraps up.
Will Johnson,
which we'll get to in a little bit. The Seattle Seahawks sitting here at pick 18.
So Metcalf is gone. Lockett's gone. What do you do? Okay, how about Matthew Golden of Texas?
Matthew Golden, Texas, makes his way to Seattle to partner, I guess, Sam Darnold and Drew Lock. I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, but they need it. They've lost Metcalf. Lockett's now gone.
You have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then you add in Matthew Golden.
So I want to pair them up.
You pair them up, and then you make your way from the northwest down to the southeast to Tampa, where the Buccaneers are in need of help on the defensive side of the ball. Their offense, pretty good. Got good receivers, running backs, quarterback, defense. Question.
Well, how about Jahdae Barron from Texas, the corner?
Jahdae Barron. There we go. Back-to-back Texans.
Yep.
And then as soon as they wrap up, it brings us to a team that I'm very intrigued by for quite a lot of reasons, because it is the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos, currently the rumor is they could be looking to trade this pick because teams want to jump the Steelers to go and get Shedeur Sanders. But along with all of this is the rumor and the thought that Sean Payton wants himself a Army knife. He's had that for years at the Saints. He had for gosh knows how long Alvin Kamara, Jimmy Graham.
So you're leaning toward
Tyson
Amari
Hill.
and Hampton from North Carolina.
I'm leaning Amari and Hampton.
I think that'll be the pick.
I also think if one of Loveland or Warren somehow makes it to 20, they're just not they're not making it past the Broncos. I think those two are their top 2 guys. I think Hampton's right after them. If they have any chance of getting one of the 2 tight ends, they take them. If not, Hampton
gets excited. Not in this case.
No. I can remember a few years ago, Steve, the Steelers had about the 20th or 21st pick in the draft and took a quarterback after a similar season.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for them?
Yeah.
Making it a 22, a team that has itself a quarterback, needs some help on the skill positions and also in the defensive line.
Well,
the Chargers.
Yeah. Now, normally, if he falls this far, I think Jim would take
Loveland.
Well, he'd take Loveland if he fell this far. He'd also take Grant if he fell this far. But because of that, he'll take Derek Harmon of Oregon.
Derek Harmon.
I don't care what
Oregon.
the guy, whether I like him or not. I know he's graded in the first round. I just don't understand why he's graded in the first round. In fact, to me, I've watched Derek Harmon how many times against Penn State in my career. This goes back to the pick the Giants made at corner for Banks from Maryland. There's no time in any game I did between Penn State and Maryland where Jack and I sat down and we'd talk about just privately about the opposing team, and his name never came up, Deontay Banks. Never came up because you watch the video, just another guy, just another guy, just another guy. Right? That's the same thing with Harmon. It's not like I've never done a Derek Harmon game or multiple Derek Harmon games, which means I've watched multiple videos that include teams he's on. And he's always been just another guy.
Yeah.
But he's graded first round, so
may as well.
So send him in there.
And he's going to be sent onto the stage. I don't know if he's there or not in Green Bay, where the draft is being taken place, of course, with the 10th overall pick. Tyler Warren's going to get a lot of boos because the Bears are going to get booed heavily in Green Bay.
Yes, they will.
But a team that is
But he's not going to be there anyway.
No, but a team that's going to get love when the pick is selected at 23, the Green Bay Packers, with needs at receiver, edge, and corner.
So, yep, and that's the last part. The last part's right there. That's the Will Johnson pick right there.
Will Johnson makes his way from Michigan to Wisconsin, which then brings us to another pick that's probably going to get a little bit of booze. The Minnesota Vikings sitting on the clock at 24.
Nick, I'm on the worry from South Carolina because, Harrison Smith's getting long in the tooth for the NFL. Geez, 36 is long in the tooth. I'm trying to remember 36. But yeah, the kid from South Carolina gets the pick.
South Carolina safety, I think a freak athlete. I believe he had some crazy off the charts numbers.
Yeah.
Nick Emonwari goes to the Vikings. Then going down south, the Houston Texans sitting here with glaring holes on the offensive line. They have some good receivers in there, but there's a question at receiver as well due to some injuries. We already have the Texans going for C.J. Stroud.
Well, where's Laramie Tunsil right now?
He is gone.
Yeah. Josh Simmons of Ohio State. I know there's been some medicals that haven't come out right, but this guy is a first-round talent. I saw it all over the video and getting ready, even though he did not play against Penn State this year because he got hurt in I think he got hurt in the Oregon game.
He did. He got hurt in the game, didn't play Penn State.
Right, and didn't play. But you can see all over the video of other games that season that the guy was a big-time talent. He's a transfer from San Diego State, so I think Josh Simmons is the pick.
Josh Simmons, 25th, brings us to 26th, where the L.A. Rams are up with the first-round pick for the first time in God knows how long. They're actually picking. Again, they picked Jared Verse, I believe, last year in the first round, which they didn't trade the pick, surprisingly. And now they have another pick in the first round this year. I believe they're also making their selections, if I'm not mistaken, from one of the firehouses in L.A.
Yes,
they're partnering up to do it, which I think is incredible.
Yes,
so shout out to the Rams, Les Snead, Sean McVay, all of them for doing that. The Rams sitting here at 26th overall with a few needs across the board. Where do you have them going here at 26?
They got a lot of needs.
They got a lot of needs.
I'm going to go Booker, the guard.
You're going with Booker, the guard from Alabama. Tyler Booker.
Yeah, the guard.
Guard from Alabama. He is projected somewhere in that first round. It could be up as high as 15 all the way through 32, somewhere in there.
Right.
So Booker, the first guard off the board, brings us now to the Ravens sitting here at 27 with needs on the offensive line and then on the defense, on the edge, and in the defensive back room.
All right. So what's interesting is that what's Baltimore known for doing? They actually take traits over production. Not always, but they've always had a tendency to do, like, I see the trait, what he has. So a guy that fits that category is Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
Why would that be?
Because his production is okay. See, I'm the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I want production. I want to see, like I just talked about Harmon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Harmon has traits.
Mm-hmm.
I never see production.
You want the higher floor to be higher floor is a positive.
Look, college football has become really, really good. Now, is the NFL a big jump? Of course it is. But if you're able to perform well in a Power 4 conference, and in this case, like we're talking about the SEC, that tells me something.
Yeah.
Okay? That you've got something to you and that you can play. Stewart's one of those guys that flashes and shows he can play, but it's more about his traits and physicality, things like that.
What he could do.
And that's what the Ravens do.
Shamar Stewart sitting there at 27-28 brings us to a team that's also going to get booed in this draft, the Detroit Lions, sitting here at 28.
Man, they got a lot of stuff.
They got a lot of needs. Wide receiver, guard, edge, linebacker. They got a lot they're in need of.
Well, first of all, they're an excellent team. I don't think they lose to Washington if they have their defense.
Yeah, if they're healthy, even by 20% more.
I mean, I have rarely seen a team in the NFL on one side of the ball get more decimated than Detroit. Now, I realize Goff threw the 5 interceptions against Washington.
But it would have helped if they had, I think, 8 of their 11 players back.
Right. And I think that, and I know there's some injuries are an excuse.
When it's to that extent, it's a lot.
Okay, let's deal in reality here. Now we're done with your fantasy team. Donovan Izaraku from Boston College because he's an edge player.
Edge rusher. And then it brings us to the team they lost to, the Washington Commanders, sitting here at 29. They would love Marion Hampton to be on the board here. He is not going to be. They are sitting with needs at the rush and the running back, guard, edge rushers, and in the defensive back room.
Well, in the defensive back room, what was a really good team this year defensively? It was Kentucky. Kentucky's really good. So how about Maxwell Harrison?
I believe
from KY.
I believe the fastest man in the draft this year, if I'm not mistaken. That now brings us to the back 3 of this draft, the 3 teams people think are the best in the NFL, and I tend to agree with that one. The Buffalo Bills sitting here. They need help on the defense, pretty much,
Look,
where they need help.
Again, I watched them play against Georgia Tech. Watched them play in the SEC championship game. You watch them play against Notre Dame. Malachi Starks sticks out to me at a position of need for the Bills at safety, and I would go with Starks from Georgia.
Malachi Starks makes his way to the land of Buffalo, and now brings us to the Super Bowl team, the losers first, the Chiefs. Losers. I'm going to make a prediction similar to the Patriots, what you did earlier. I'm going to guess offensive line, Steve. Is that a fair guess to make?
And let's go with a guy that impressed me on video when I was getting ready for the game and impressed me in the game itself, and that's Josh Conerly from Oregon. Josh
Conerly. And then to wrap up the first round, I projected if he was on the board, which you had him going way earlier than I did, I think if he's on the board, they go back to the Georgia well, take Mykel Williams off the edge. They, of course, lost Josh Sweat this year to free agency, Milton Williams, and the interior is gone, and Brandon Graham has also retired. So they are in need a lot off the edge, and there are a few edge rushers still left over, but a lot of players they're in need of. A lot of slots.
Mike Green Marshall.
So your first round, as we go over it, as it wraps on up here, just to make sure I've got this on the spot. First overall, Tennessee takes Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. Cleveland Browns, second overall, Travis Hunter, Colorado. New York Giants.
We don't project trades.
With no trades involved.
Yeah.
Third overall, the G-Men go for Abdul Carter. Fourth, the Patriots select Will Campbell, LSU. Fifth, the Jags go with Ashton Genty out of Boise State. The Raiders go with Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. The Jets go Armin Membu, the tackle from Missouri. The Panthers go with Jalen Walker from Georgia. The Saints go with Jackson Dart at Ole Miss.
That's right. I did that to spite you.
I know you did. The Bears then at number 10 take Tyler Warren. 11, the Niners go with Mason Graham. 12, the Cowboys go Tet McMillan. The Dolphins 13, Walter Nolan out of Mississippi. The Colts go with Colston Loveland. Mykel Williams makes his way to Atlanta Falcons. Arizona Cardinals take Jahad Campbell from Alabama. Kenneth Grant to the Bengals, Matthew Golden to the Seahawks, Jahdae Barron to the Bucks, Amarian Hampton to the Broncos, Shador Sanders to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. A person who I guess isn't a fan of you, by the way, is Derek Harmon and his family. Goes 22 to the Chargers. Will Johnson to the Packers, Nick Emonwori to the Vikings.
I mean, like I said, I know he grades out high. I'm just talking about, look, it's not as if I've never seen him.
I know. You said you're not a fan of him. I don't think his family's a fan of you.
And I don't care. Okay? Guess what? He can laugh at me all the way to the bank because he is going to be a first-round pick with first-round money. And I'm happy for him.
Yeah. Coming in 24, Nick Emonwori.
Doesn't mean I'd pick him.
I know. Nick Emonwori makes his way to the Minnesota Vikings at 24. Josh Simmons, 25 to the Texans. Tyler Booker, 26 to the Rams. Shamar Stewart, 27 to the Ravens. Donovan Ezuraku to the Lions at 28 or 29. My bad, I can't read math. 30, the Malachi Starks pick goes to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Connerly Jr. to the Chiefs at 31. To wrap up the first round, Mr. Mike Green goes to the Kelly Green of the Philadelphia Eagles. As someone, I guess, revs a motorcycle behind us here in the studio. So overall, strong draft. 3 quarterbacks taken in your first round. I have none. Would you want to hear mine? My craziness?
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'd love to hear yours.
Cam Ward first to the Titans. Travis Hunter second.
Yeah, but you said you had no
third.
quarterbacks.
One quarterback taken.
Yeah, you said
I had one
none.
quarterback. None outside of Cam Ward. How about that? Right. The crazy stuff I have the Patriots saying screw it and going Ashton Genty. Not going to happen. I wanted to have fun with it. Some craziness I had the Niners going with Jahdae Barron. Cowboys taking Matthew Golden. And the Colts get Loveland. I had Mike Green going 15, the Falcons. I think they go with him early.
But again, they're so familiar with Georgia.
Yeah, I know. Some players you didn't have on there. I had James Pierce Jr. going to the Seahawks out of Tennessee. Good player. Yep. Luther Burden from Missouri going to help Ladd McConkey.
Burden is...
He had an okay year, but it felt like got penalized, as we discussed throughout the season.
He got penalized because of the quarterback issues that Missouri had this past season. Part injury. And I don't. There's no doubt in my mind he's a first-round talent.
And that's why I think if he's sitting there, so Harbaugh thinks, you know what?
Let's go back to Stewart with Baltimore. What did I talk about? Some teams pick traits. Burton has traits.
Yeah.
This past season did not have production.
No. I have Luther Burden going to the Chargers at 22. I then have other players here. Nick Scorton, the other A&M defensive end, going to the Ravens. So I have a defensive end there. Sure. I have Trey Amos, going to the Commanders from Ole Miss. I just think they're sitting there. Marshawn Lattimore had a rough end of the season. Yep. So why not? And then that's about it for the players I don't have on the board with you, and you don't have on the board with me. So it was, look at that. Look at that, Steve. Knocked out a draft in 30 minutes.
That's not going to happen tonight.
No, it will not. It'll take more like 3 to 4 hours, which is not fun.
To their credit, they have knocked down the picks to 10 minutes. They were, a few years ago, 15 minutes. Now they're 10. I always laugh about when they get to that point, like, okay, you're picking 20. What, you didn't expect these guys to? Like, you have it organized. Here's my board, 1 through 250. Yeah. Here's my board at each position. You scratch them out as you go. Right? It doesn't take that long to pick somebody.
No. And you usually have an idea who you want where. The question is going to be the trades. That's the only question here.
I think there'll be trades tonight.
And
I think it is not a deep draft. And when you have a draft with less depth, you have more movement and trades because people feel they can get a relatively similar pick later.
Well, that is the interesting piece, is that there are, as we discussed, I have players on my board you don't have on yours in the first round because apparently there are approximately 60 players that could go in the first round that like wouldn't shock anybody. Like, could we see both Jackson Dart and Shador Sanders go in the first round? Yeah, we could also see them slip out of the second round because someone else is there available who someone wants. Could KJ Winston find his way to the back of the first round? Maybe.
Right.
Like, anything's optional here.
I think KJ will be tomorrow, but he'll be in the second round.
He'll be an early day 2 pick.
He'll be an earlier day 2 pick. And as I've told people when I've been asked give me a guy under the radar that could be a steal. You know, and I said KJ Winston because he only played 5 quarters last year. So he's been off everybody's radar since September of last year. And people always wonder how's a guy bouncing back from an injury. Well, when he ran the 40, he ran a 4.5 40 on pro day. Well, I know he can run, like, he can get between 4.37 and 4.42. I already know he can do that.
He can fly.
Right? So for him to run 4.5 6 months after surgery, pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. Other players I want to bring up that Penn State will see drafted. So you mentioned KJ Winston, another safety who joins Winston in that department, Jalen Reed. We expect to hear his name called at some point. What are teams getting in Jalen Reed?
They're going to get a guy that really knows how to play, and his mind is as important as his athleticism. His athleticism is impressive. He ran a really good time in Indianapolis, did not run here because he was happy with his time in Indianapolis. But, and this was a question I was asked as well when his name came up, and I said, look, you want a guy that's back there that's the brains of the operation? I said, that's him. I said, he will be the smartest player on the field that knows where everybody else is supposed to be. I said, to go with his athleticism, his ball hawking skills, and the fact that he can put your other players in the right spot, I said he's going to be a coach's dream to have.
Another defensive set for Penn State, Kobe King. We're thinking he could hear his name called later in the draft.
Saw Kobe Tuesday night. Looks good. And Kobe King, James Franklin doesn't normally, when he recruits linebackers, normally it's somebody that can play all 3 spots because there'll be multiple with what they do. Kobe was a guy that when they recruited, they deviated from that because he was a middle linebacker. The area where we already know he can play the run and has great anticipation. The area where he's really improved in pass coverage. Now, is Kobe going to be an every down linebacker in the league? Maybe, maybe not. But there are going to be certain situations where people want to throw on first down. And guess what? He'll be able to drop back and cover it. My guess is he'll probably be maybe round 4 or 5, but I mean he'll definitely make the league.
So I would then want to get to the next piece, which is a player you think could be drafted later in the draft, not including Penn State guys. Going no Penn State players for this pick. Okay. A player you are high on outside of that first round rotation that we discussed. You're high on for insert reason here.
Well, we didn't mention Emeka Egbuka going.
We did not mention Emeka Egbuka.
Emeka Egbuka, I think, is going to be really good for somebody because I just think he can really play. I think the same thing with Sawyer and JTT. I think they're both really good players that can really play. I think are really good and will be good fits for somebody. I think the offensive tackle for Minnesota will be a great pick for somebody, the left tackle, and whose name I can't remember in terms of...
Tackle from Minnesota, Air Ursary.
He is going to be an excellent second-round pick for somebody at that left tackle spot. I think he is a terrific player. There's a lot of things about him that I think that are really, really good. I think Riley Mills from Notre Dame is going to be an excellent pick for somebody. I think Xavier Watts from Notre Dame is going to be an excellent pick for somebody. Jalen Milroe is intriguing, but Jalen Milroe to me is the Anthony Richardson of this draft.
Well, that's what I want to go to next, is the quarterback situation. Because, of course...
but those are some of the names that jumped to me that I think are really good players that can make something happen for you. Carson Swessinger, the linebacker from UCLA, is going to be a second-day pick. And guess what? He's a guy, watching him on video and then seeing him in person, knows how to play the game. Right? He has great anticipation the way he plays the game. And I like him a lot. So, I mean, those are just some of the names that pop out to me. Oh, Jay Higgins is a guy that's may end up being a second or third, maybe even a third-day pick, the linebacker from Iowa. I think he's a really good player.
I got another position I think is the most interesting to me, which is tight end. You're sitting here.
And by the way, I say Kyle McCord, I think, is going to be.
He's going to be great.
I think he's going to be a second-day pick, not third. I think he's going to be a second-day pick, and I think the team that gets him is going to like him.
And you are sitting here quarterback-wise. Outside of that top three we mentioned, you've got Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord. You could all hear their names called in some fashion
Everybody
earlier.
loves Shuck. They seem to really love him.
His arm talent, I think, is what they love most.
Milroe is, again, I think he's the Anthony Richardson of this draft.
Well, that was the someone talked to, I believe Ian Rappaport put this out. They said he is the fastest and most athletic person on the field at any time.
No question.
Either he's going 100 miles an hour or he is lost on the field, and there's no middle. And I was like, that's like, if you can get him to not be 0 and 100 all the time instead of put him at 75, 25, interesting.
This is how I look at Milroe. Obviously, great athlete. Check the box. Runner. Dangerous. Check the box. Arm. Big. Check the box. But he's a thrower, not a quarterback.
You know,
and it's going. I don't know if he has the ability. This is because I don't know him at all. Can you take him and get him to develop as a quarterback, which means you've got to make this throw, that throw. And then when I need to wind up and throw, see, that's Anthony Richardson's problem. Anthony Richardson is a great athlete, no question about it. But it's the equivalent of there's a big difference in Major League Baseball between a thrower and a pitcher. Okay?
You can throw real hard.
Doesn't mean the pitcher doesn't throw hard. The pitcher does throw hard, but the pitcher throws 3 pitches and is proficient at all 3 and can mix them in at any time and doesn't have a crutch.
Yep.
Okay? Milroe only has 1 speed when he throws the ball.
And it's missile.
And I mean, and he'll leave marks on your chest if you don't catch it out front. It's going to be a question of whether he can develop as a quarterback. Now, I have no idea how well he reads defenses or anything. That would have to be something I'd have to, I've never met Kalen DeBoer, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd have to pull a Kalen DeBoer aside and say, hey, how does he read defenses? Tell me about it. How does he see things? I don't think with him it's a question of seeing the field. Right? I mean, the touchdown pass he threw the bond to beat Auburn in overtime was just a phenomenal play. Great throw. I mean, that was a great throw, and he saw him and he found him. So he has that ability to do that. But, like, I'm watching the Michigan Bowl game, which he played in, the Citrus Bowl. I don't know what I was watching. Like, there are so many times where I thought because of his skill set in that game, I kept waiting for him. It's 3rd down and short. Just take off and run. And I don't know if either Alabama was trying to prove something or he was trying to prove something. I don't know. I can't tell. Because he's intriguing because you're right. He will be the best athlete in the field. He's the kind of guy that I think in the end, if say he starts all 17 games for somebody, he's the kind of guy that's going to rush for about 800 yards for you.
Yeah.
Right? But he's going to frustrate the heck out of people because he's going to throw somewhere you sit back and go, okay, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
And then he'll throw something you go like, oh, because Richardson's like that. Richardson
He makes a 75-yard bomb, and you're like, where'd that come from?
Oh, that's incredible. But Richardson, I thought, never saw the field well at Florida. But again, what was the best game he played? It was the opening game of the season against Utah, I think, where he threw the game-winning touchdown pass in the back of the end zone. Milroe's not a first-round pick. If you take him in the 2nd round,
The second day is where it's going to be most interesting for me for quarterbacks.
The Giants could take Abdul Carter 3. Yeah. They could take Milroe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless Dart or Sanders is sitting there, because the Giants have the second pick of
the second round. By the way, only 2, I believe, quarterbacks have ever been taken.
The Browns have the first pick of that round, and they could take a quarterback.
Yeah. Only 2 quarterbacks, I believe, have ever gone in the first 2 picks of the second round ever. If I'm not mistaken by the stat, it was Will Levis a few years ago, and before that, a man for the Chargers named Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So, either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, Hall of Famer.
But again, when Drew Brees was picked, I thought, what a great pick by because, I saw Drew Brees twice in person. And I was like, I don't care how tall he is. Like, he knows how to play, right? And can make all the throws, but he knows how to play the game.
I can confirm that as a Saints fan.
Right. But like with Will, what do they always say about Will? I mean, big, strong, powerful arm, great release, but he doesn't have the ability to make all the throws. And it's like, I saw him attempt to make all the throws.
Yeah.
On an everyday basis. And, the male commercials are pretty good. But I mean,
yeah.
But as an NFL quarterback,
not sure.
He belongs in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he absolutely belongs in the league. But as a starting quarterback,
that's the question.
Again, he's a work in progress. So let's go back. Now, Milroe's a better athlete than Will.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Will, in some ways, a better thrower than Milroe.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's a difference between a thrower and a quarterback. Right? Now, Ward, to his credit, is a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Sanders, to his credit, is a quarterback. So is Dart. They play like that. Kyle McCord is a quarterback. But Milroe is more of a as a thrower of the ball, he is a raw product. As an athlete, you dream about having an athlete like this, and I'll say this: Milroe doesn't come out of games. I mean, he gets hit and he stays in there. So, in other words, if you are concerned about, well, if I run him a lot, will he take such a beating? It'll be a problem because Richardson has had trouble staying in games. I think Milroe would be fine there. He's a powerfully built guy, and it says a lot to me that he played in the bowl game. They played in the Citrus Bowl. They weren't in the playoff.
Yeah.
He played. That says a lot to me.
I want to bring up a position that is similar to quarterback that a lot of quarterbacks transition to.
And by the way, if there's only one quarterback taking the first round, I can see Cleveland and the Giants both taking quarterbacks.
Oh, absolutely.
Round 2. Okay.
The start of that second round, if there's only Cam Ward off the board, is going to be hectic.
Cam Ward's the only one. If Sanders and Dart are both there to go with Milroe, probably people seem to feel as the fourth pick or Shuck.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, none of the quarterbacks, if any of those guys are available, I don't think any of them get past the Saints at 40, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, the Saints will pick somewhere. I had the Saints taking a quarterback in round 1, but there's going to be a quarterback. And to me, the guy, if they go into round 2 and say it's Sanders and Dart to start the second round, I think it might be Shuck.
Yeah, Shuck is the current projection, but if both of them are still on the board, if Dart's there, I think they trade up to the top of that draft and get Dart at 30-something. The position that's most interesting to me because of the pure talent across the board, which tight end for me. You're looking at the first round, we mentioned Loveland and Warren. I'm sitting here in the second round. I see guys like Elijah Arroyo from Miami, who's incredible. Mason Taylor out of LSU. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. Gunnar Helm from Texas. Harold Fannin Jr., of course, Bowling Green, not a tight end. Mitchell Evans, Notre Dame. And then my favorite, I know, look at me, picking the Orangeman, Aronde Gadsden Jr., Aronde Gadsden second. Incredible player, huge catch radius. Very interesting to me. He was incredible last year for Syracuse. The past 2 years he's been great. The past 3 years he's been great. He's basically been a receiver for Syracuse because they had no one. And he was incredible. And then they got a good last year, of course, with Kyle McCord at quarterback, helping clean things up a little bit.
And Mitchell Evans is a good player for Notre Dame. Ferguson I like a lot for Oregon. So those are two guys I also had a chance to see. And then Fannin,
he's an interesting player.
Fannin it wasn't just what he did against Penn State, He followed that up with a really good game against Texas A&M. And that told me a lot because, going into the game, after watching the Penn State tape, if you're Texas A&M, who are you zeroing in on? Fannin, because the Penn State video will tell you that, hey, we got to take a look at him. I watched him play in the bowl game. He did the same thing in the bowl game. He's a productive player, but he might be, believe it or not, a fourth-round pick.
Tight end is loaded. It's a loaded selection.
The Syracuse player I'm impressed by because he's gone through multiple quarterbacks and had the same production. That tells you something about him because you've seen some of the other players for Syracuse, their production dramatically increased with Kyle McCord. His stayed consistent.
Yep. His was consistent. Gadsden, if I'm not mistaken, was there when Tommy DeVito was there. I believe Gadsden was a Syracuse player when I was in Syracuse. So he's just a huge body, big tight end, 6'5", 240. I like him. I want a team to take a shot at him. I think he's going to be great. But the draft overall has a lot of intrigue, a lot of questions. And as we sit here, I'm getting ready to gear up for tonight's, of course, coverage. We'll have that over on the social media channels for everyone to follow along with over at 7 Mountain Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll have some coverage over there. The Penn State guys, all the different draft picks, who the Steelers take. But I, along with all of that, will be watching out to see what Syracuse guys get selected where, because as things sit, there's a bunch of Syracuse players. The Quinn Allen Jr., running back. You've got Justin Barron, linebacker. Elijah Clark, defensive back. Fadil Diggs on the defensive line. Aronde Gadsden, Kyle McCord, Jackson Meeks. A lot of players I want to see where they get drafted.
No,
so
exactly right.
All those things are going on. I'm a proud alum of Syracuse University. I'm very intrigued to see where those guys go. And put the question out earlier, asking where do people think certain players are going to get picked. We put where do you think Abdul Carter is going to get drafted? The main selection, Giants, unsurprisingly. The next one, where Tyler Warren here is name called, and most think between 7 and 10 in the draft, which would put him somewhere between the Jets, Panthers, Saints, and Bears, where you have him going. The last one is who do the Steelers select? It is 50-50 between Shedeur Sanders and someone else. So who knows?
And again, I just took a flyer on it because let's just shake up the draft. Let's make Steeler fans mad. I don't know.
And
it is.
There's a hot rumor, by the way, going out right now that the 8th overall pick could be on the move to someone who wants a quarterback, apparently. That is what Tom Pelissero is saying. The 8th overall pick, it looks like it's going to get traded before the night is over because someone wants to jump the Saints for a quarterback, which, based on the draft, makes sense, as you have them taking Jackson Dart at 9. If someone likes Dart or likes Sanders, 8th pick's a pretty good spot to go to. You know you're going to get someone there ahead of the Saints. They probably don't have enough to jump up in the draft. So a lot of trades could happen. No trades could happen. Nothing surprises me.
No offense, but I don't think there's much difference between picking Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders.
I don't either.
There really isn't.
They're different people. Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen Sanders in person. Obviously, Dart I have, which means I've also seen a lot of video of Dart leading into the game I did. And Jack Ham and I were both very impressed. In fact, about a month and a half ago, we were talking about the Steelers pick. And he said, and Jack said, he said, what do you think of Jackson Dart? And I said, I think he'd be a great pick for anybody who gets him. Now, I know the knock on him is going to be he's more of a system guy, that Lane Kiffin has a friendly quarterback system. But I like the variety of throws he makes and the fact that he has mobility and can move. He actually is a better runner than Shedeur Sanders. People would be like, well, no, because of Shedeur Sanders' dad, I think people think Shedeur can really run. Dart's a better runner than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is not really a great runner, but he's accurate, he's tough, he's smart, he knows the game, and he operated behind a mediocre offensive line that was a little bit better this past season than the season before, but still not great this year.
Yeah.
And yes, he had Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter was also fortunate he had a Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
I mean, and don't hold his father against him.
No. If anything, I think it's a positive because he knows how to be a professional.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that want to hold Dion against his son. I wouldn't do that. Just evaluate him as a player. Mm-hmm. A lot of people wanted to hold Lonzo Ball's dad against him. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't really think Lonzo Ball was a great player.
No.
Right? But the brother, LaMelo, you're like, he can play.
Yeah.
Right? So you just, to me... doing this to me is the equivalent of talking about analytics in sports. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly useful to have analytics because it gives you all the information possible, and then you can pick and choose what you think can work based on what your team can do. Mm-hmm. Okay. Same thing with this. You can sit there and do all the combine numbers and so on and so forth on somebody and talk about traits. But to me, it always comes down to, what does the video tell you? Right? Mm-hmm. The video tells you who knows how to play, who puts themselves in the right position. Does the corner understand how to use the sideline? Does the corner do a great job of contact and then release when the safety's going to take him?
Yeah.
I mean, there's video tells you a lot, and it tells you actually who can play the game, as opposed to a group of numbers that tell you what traits they have.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we get into this and wrap this up, again, follow along our draft coverage over at 7 Mountain Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll have it there. We'll break down the first round tomorrow here on the show.
Is Jason Lord participating?
He did participate.
Oh,
I know. How dare I bring it up? Jason Lord had Shedeur Sanders also going 21. He had the Saints taking Mason Graham at 9.
Look, he thinks the Cardinals are still in St. Louis.
Yeah, he does. You know who he thinks is going 32nd overall to the Eagles? Jerry Valeri.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape, from college football to European soccer.